Hey guys, Brian Crazy. I'm back with a wrestling-related video response for Sean of SeanzViewEnt Entertainment. This isn't drama. This isn't BS. I want to move on and I want to get back to talking about wrestling 100% of the time. But I noticed Sean produced a wrestling-related video. WWF Attitude Era should have never taken place, and 13 reasons why. And I want to respond to him. I want to engage him in a conversation. I'm going to send this as a video response. If he wants to respond, that's great. Like I said, this isn't drama, this isn't BS. Once upon a time in this community, you could talk about wrestling, you could send each other responses, you could engage the community, and you could share your thoughts, you could share your opinions with your fellow man. Now, I know in the past, me and Sean have had a storied history, but like I said, it's time to move on. I want to get back to wrestling-related videos, and he made this video, and he made a lot of bold statements in this video, and I would like to address those statements, and I would like to give you guys my take on them. So point number one that Sean made was that the fans missed the TV-14 rating, and he also made the point within point number one that most of the Attitude Era was PG. Now, it's generally accepted that the Attitude Era existed from late 1997 to 2001, 6 days after WWF announced that they purchased WCW at WrestleMania 17 when Stone Cold and Vince McMahon embraced in the ring. Now, from 1997 to 2001, the majority of the content was TV-14. Now, some of the SmackDown run was TV PG, if I'm not mistaken, and I know going back looking through my tapes of my old tape trading days, I know it sounds so archaic, and a lot of you young guys might not even know what I'm talking about, but once upon a time we used to trade VHS tapes at the bus stop of WCW, of ECW, WWF, pay-per-views, whatever it may be, and I still possess a lot of those, and so does JC Styles. And we put together our video library, and we started scanning through 1998, and the majority of the shows from 1998 were rated TV PG. But by 1999, they were rated TV-14, and the majority of the pay-per-views were rated TV-14, especially King of the Ring 98, WrestleMania 14, this, that, or the other. So the statement that most of the Attitude Era was TV-PG is incorrect. Now, the statement that fans do miss the TV-14 rating, they do miss the edgier content, is correct. I do miss an edgier Raw. I do miss what Raw used to be about, when it was raw, when it was uncut, when it was uncensored, when it was just incredible. I mean, every Monday night was must-see television, and we'll get to that, a point that you made about fans coming, going, and must-see television in a little bit. Point number two, the Attitude Era provided a standard that the WWE fans now expect. They raised the bar. Now, I do agree, the Attitude Era did raise the bar, and they raised the bar because they were trying to defeat WCW. Now, for 84 straight weeks, WCW beat WWF in the ratings. When WWF got some of the worst ratings, I believe it was in April of 1997, that's when they made the big change and went into the Attitude Era, or started making the steps of going into the Attitude Era. Like I said earlier on in this video, the Attitude Era officially didn't start until after the Montreal Screwjob. Now, the reason that they had to make those steps is because WCW was providing an incredible product at that point in time. The NWO was hot. I mean, we're only talking 10 months after the NWO Genesis happened when that group came together. And if the WWF didn't make a decision to make their product more realistic and take that chance, quite possibly the WWF would have been out of business. So if they did provide a standard that the fans now expect, they had to do that. They had to make that step to survive, to thrive, and to still be around today. Now, you say that the current product can't compete with the product of yesteryear because of the storylines. I do agree. A lot of fans want that TV-14 rating, but if the writers can't write a good TV-PG product, what makes you think they could write a good TV-14 product? Then you say the superstars. I have to disagree with you on that point. I think the current crop of superstars is incredible. I think that they're being underutilized, to be perfectly honest. And that there's no competition. There's no mainstream competition. I do agree with you. I love TNA Wrestling, but they are a distant second, and ROH isn't even on WWE Spectrum. Number three, put WCW and ECW out of business. I have to agree with both of those points. WCW was losing money. Now, there was an opportunity for a group of investors led by Eric Bischoff, known as Fusion Media Ventures, to actually purchase WCW. Unfortunately, the deal ended up falling through, and the reason the deal fell through is an executive by the name of J.B. Kellner, who worked for the merged AOL Time Warner, excuse me guys, just trying to catch up with my thoughts, decided to pull the plug. He considered wrestling lowbrow entertainment, low culture. If you guys aren't familiar with it, Google it. And he decided to pull the plug. He didn't feel like it was a suitable fit for his networks. Now, Eric Bischoff and Fusion still could have bought the company, but it would have been worthless if they didn't have TV time. Also, there was some sort of stipulation in a lawsuit that WWF had first right to purchase WCW intellectual property in the company itself if it ever was liquidated. And I believe that came from the lawsuit that stemmed when Razor Ramon, Scott Hall, and Diesel Kevin Nash made their debut in WCW, and they were portraying the whole outsiders angle. WWF sued WCW at the time. So the statement that they put WCW out of business is incorrect. They put ECW out of business. Yes, they did use a lot of concepts from ECW. They did use a lot of talent from ECW. But a lot of people don't realize this. Paul Heyman was on the WWF payroll while ECW was still in business. And also, when ECW went out of business, they were very, very, very much in debt. I mean, they were millions and millions and millions of dollars in debt. Paul Heyman, the wrestling promoter, absolutely incredible. Paul Heyman, the manager, absolutely incredible. Paul Heyman, the businessman, just like Jim Crockett. He really could have used a good business manager that could have helped direct his money and helped direct that company in the right direction. So did WWF put ECW out of business? In part, entirely, no. Number 4, there was more injuries sustained within the Attitude Era because of the more hardcore environment. That is true. Hands down, I'm not going to disagree with you. That is true. Number 5, Attitude Era fans are gone from that era, and the company should have stayed PG. They ended up with the same end result. Well, for a period of time, the WWF became mainstream. It became cool. It became quote-unquote water cooler talk. The wrestling bubble expanded, and then the wrestling bubble collapsed. We've seen this happen so many times. The era of wrestling in the 80s, the golden age of wrestling back in the earlier part of the last century. I mean, the wrestling bubble has grown and the wrestling bubble has collapsed. I mean, at one point in time, there was an incredible amount of fans tuning into Monday Night Raw, and then those fans started going away. They didn't start going away because of the PG rating. They started losing fans during the Ruthless Aggression era, which arguably was a transition period from the Attitude Era to the current product. And during the Ruthless Aggression era, sometimes they pushed the bar more than they did during the Attitude Era. Now, honestly, in my opinion, the wrestling bubble expanded, the wrestling bubble collapsed, and will be several years before the wrestling bubble expands again. Number 6, 40% of the WWE universe is brainwashed. They're Attitude Era fans that are holdovers. I don't honestly know where you got that statistic from, and I'm not even going to try to debate that statistic. Number 7, Stone Cold Steve Austin was a bad example. Now, I like Stone Cold Steve Austin. He was anti-establishment. It was what you wanted to be. It was everybody that was held down by the boss that just really wanted to flip the boss the middle finger and say, you know what, I'm not taking it anymore. I'm standing up against this crap once and for all. Now, was he a bad example for kids? I mean, I have my own children. Now, if I thought Stone Cold was a bad example, I could easily have them watch another program. So if kids were being influenced by Stone Cold Steve Austin, that's because their parents were allowing it. And now if their parents were getting upset because their kids were getting in trouble at school, then I would say that falls on the parent. I'm a parent myself, and I know what's right and what's wrong. And when I was in school, I watched the Attitude Era. I didn't go around flipping off my teachers. I didn't go, around, cussing people out. I knew what was right and what was wrong and what was entertainment and what wasn't. Then, number 8, you said it had a negative effect on life. The Attitude Era had a negative effect on life. Yet again, like I pointed out in point number 7, it would only have a negative effect if you allowed it to have a negative effect on your life. If you allowed yourself to quote-unquote degenerate, if you allowed yourself to not look at this as a form of entertainment, but to look at this as something that is really going on, something that is really happening. And if you got in trouble from something you learned on WWF television, you could arguably say people were going around shooting people because of Grand Theft Auto. I mean, these are choices that people would have to make for their own selves. Point number 9, you said because of DX, girls were flashing anywhere. Girls were flashing for DX. I think girls have been flashing at parties and wet t-shirt contests and spring break before DX ever existed. Now, did Triple H get a couple girls to flash in the arena? Yeah, it was a different time. Do rockers get chicks to flash during shows? Yeah, I mean, blaming DX for girls flashing anywhere, I think, is way too broad. Did DX get some girls to flash in the arena? Yeah, and I'll admit that, and that's an undeniable point. But saying flashing anywhere definitely is taking it to the extreme. Number 10, too many factions and groups. Now, me personally, I like factions. I think it adds a little more realism to wrestling. Why wouldn't guys in the back get together? Why wouldn't guys with similar mentalities work together for a common goal? Just makes sense to me. But I can understand where you have too many factions and there's not enough wrestlers standing on your own feet. You can start to dislike it. So, I could be tossed up on that one. Number 11, the Montreal Screwjob. Well, the Montreal Screwjob did not take place during the Attitude Era. It took place before the Attitude Era, and the reason that the Montreal Screwjob happened was because the WWF was in dire financial straits, and they were facing stiff competition from WCW. They were losing in the ratings, and quite frankly, they were about to go out of business. So Vince McMahon signed a huge contract with Bret Hart only a few years before. He couldn't fulfill that contract, so he told Bret to go to WCW, get the money, be happy. But he became so concerned that Bret Hart was going to take the title and go to WCW with it, which Bret Hart never had the intentions to do this, but Bret Hart just refused to drop the title to Shawn Michaels in Canada at the Survivor Series. He said no. He said, mate, it's about a respect issue. I want Shawn to put me over, and then I will drop the belt to him the next night on Raw. It's easy as that. Shawn didn't want to put over Bret. Vince was afraid Bret was going to take the title, and that's how the whole thing degenerated. The Attitude Era that was kind of the genesis for the Attitude Era. That's how the Mr. McMahon character was born. Number 12, Stone Cold's broken neck at SummerSlam 1997. Yet again, pre-Attitude Era. Yet again, it was a mistake made in a wrestling match. These are human bodies. Mistakes happen. And that's why I always say in my videos, go out there, respect these athletes, especially the ones that put their neck on the line, no pun intended, for us, the wrestling fans. The ones that go out there and put on the great show. The ones that put their heart into it. They deserve our respect, regardless if you like the gimmick, regardless if you like the character. Respect the athletes that put their neck on the line. Yet again, no pun intended, for us. And number 13, Mankind's injuries. Now, a lot of Mankind's injuries were suffered during the Attitude Era in the WWF. I'm not even going to deny that. But Mankind, Cactus Jack, Dude Love, Mick Foley, whatever you want to call him, was a renowned, world-renowned hardcore wrestler before he ever even stepped foot into the WWF. He lost his ear before he even stepped foot into WWF. So to say that all of his injuries, 100%, are solely blamed on the WWF and the Attitude Era would be incorrect. Part of the injuries are blamed on those matches. Oh yeah, I mean, the Hell in a Cell matches were brutal. Some of the matches he had were absolutely brutal. So some of the injuries, I would agree. So these are just some of my quick responses, some of my quick thoughts. I'm sure I could have probably included a little bit more, but I just wanted to get this out there. This is my response to Sean of Sean's View Entertainment. I'm going to blast this over. Hey, comment on this video. No more wars, no more drama, no more BS. Let's try to get along. Let's talk about wrestling, and let's try to make this community what it once was. A community where we could get together, we could talk about wrestling, we could engage our fans and subscribers, and we could get conversation going once again. I'll catch you guys later. Have a great night and stay safe.